All right, Peter, welcome to the show. I'm delighted to have you here.
Yes, thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. It's like, and I think you're one of the first pure Texans that we have here now. First true and true. Unless I'm wrong, but I guess you're based in Texas for a long time. I think you're one of the first ones I have.
Yeah, I was born in Fort Worth, and I can keep the accent, or I can drop it if I need to.
Very good, chameleon-esque, as they say. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today, and everything in between?
Yeah, so I've like I said, I was born in Fort Worth. Been here most of my life. I worked out in the Tennessee area for about 18 years, but I've been in the restaurant industry for about 39 years. I've actually been 33 years with Taco Bell now, and love the brand. And I've actually done a lot of things in the industry. I've done operations, HR, operations services, loss prevention. I've kind of done the gamut. And but here I'm here with North Texas Bells. I've been here since about 2015, and my current role with them is the Executive VP of Operations.
That is awesome. And so are you you're the executive, so you're responsible for all the Taco Bells and the wing stops you're saying as well? So I mean,
Yes.
what is that number? That's 90.
Yeah, I'm over
92 locations.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have, we have vice presidents that operate the brands that report to me. But yeah, I do handle all operations and work with the president of the company on many operations and projects that we do.
That's awesome. And I guess, kind of diving into that then, I mean, there's obviously so many people kind of report up to you, they report up to your VPs that report up to you've got the GMs and everything else in between. I mean, it's a lot of people to kind of be responsible for, so to speak, how do you, what sort of challenges does that kind of bring you? What kind of challenges do you see in kind of trying to run such an enormous operation?
Yeah, I think it's, if you were to Google, managing people or leading people, you're going to find all of the common aspects of the challenges one would expect. I mean, making sure people are staffed, have the right number, having the right talent. I think that those are the easy things to focus on. But the challenges that I believe that the headwinds that we face in the industry is, how do we develop the talent so that they can meet the needs of our company, but also meet their personal goals and aspirations that they may have for their families, and being able to hold on to that talent. That's been the biggest thing that we're focusing on here at our company.
It's interesting you say that. Again, because I feel like I'm part therapist now in doing these podcasts, because I hear this a lot. But it's interesting, that you're saying the biggest priority is the retention, holding on to the staff, because yes. 2 years ago, it was staff at all costs. We need to get these stores back up as fast as possible. We need people. Then immediately it became, we actually need quality people in here. We don't just we don't need warm bodies anymore. And now we've seen the pendulum continue to shift and focus on the retention of the staff you have, and groom those staff into potential leadership positions, or clearly indicate and highlight pathways for professional development within the organization. Has that been a shift for you or for the organization since COVID? Did these kind of practices and policies exist kind of beforehand, or is now it's very deliberate that we need, because retention is so important, that we need to develop these programs?
Yeah, it's a great question that you ask. And I believe that, I think if you talk to any leader of any company, they're going to speak to some level of aspiration or a goal for their people to be developed and create opportunities for them. Our purpose of our company is to build know-how and create opportunities. And so as the leader of our company, I'm trying to understand, well, what is my role in that? And I believe that my journey since COVID, and I think you summed it up pretty well. We went from, don't have anybody to need a bunch of people and nothing's available. So all the pay raises were, pay rates were impacted and all of that. We're kind of past that now.
Yeah.
I think I would consider, operations kind of back to normal. Don't want to discount the impact of COVID on the community and all the people that lost their lives and everything like that. So when I say we've moved on, not just from the aspect of operations.
Yeah.
But I've challenged myself, Alex, to look at it in a different view. Because if you talk to the HR department or even networking with other people, first thing they do is, are we recruiting good people? What's our benefit plans and things like that? And I tell you, Alex, just for kind of an awakening for myself, I'm kind of looking in the mirror. I think that people are losing people because the company that they work for doesn't have a clear articulation of what the goals of the company are.
Yeah.
So they struggle to connect. Am I part of something bigger than me?
Yeah.
Because they can go make money and provide for their family anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think along with that clear vision that a corporation has to have, you have to have a plan and you have to be able to execute it. And I think that, understanding what clear actions and what milestones you want someone to achieve, complemented by what I would like to consider just a strong or a robust operating system so they can execute.
Yeah.
If you don't have those two things, it doesn't matter who you hire. It doesn't matter how great they are or how much you paid them. They're going to go find that. And I think that's kind of what I'm realizing on my own is how can I provide a vision and how can I provide an operating system that people can execute, they can win, they can grow in their own personal prosperity, and they can actually, grow their careers. And I think that's the miss that a lot of people are, might want to start taking a look at.
Well, it's interesting you say that. So let's talk about vision then for a second. I mean, hospitality is interesting for so many reasons why people get into it, what has happened pre and post COVID, and like people sort of overarching sort of mentality for working in the space in any way. And I think a lot about that in terms of like defining. Sorry, my dog barked. I'm sure you heard that. I'm like, be quiet. When I think about vision, I think about like defining it, like, ownership models and like designing ownership over a vision is something like very difficult to do because obviously, some companies do like equity plans, some companies do, like that's like a defined, almost like articulated way of saying you can be part of the vision. But how do you think about articulating the vision in a sort of more intangible way of like getting across the purpose of being in the organization in the first place? Like all the way from like entry level sort of server to GM to, regional director to VP to you. Like, how does that like vision articulate itself? How do you think about that?
Well, I think I understand what you're asking. I think here at our company, our vision is to inspire, support, and develop people, and that doesn't necessarily mean just the people that work for us. It could be vendors that we come in contact with, but I think it's all encapsulated, in our purpose about building know-how and creating opportunities. But that's on a wall in our office. It's discussing orientation. Those things. That's all about just putting the sticker on their folder. That's just letting them know what it is. The bigger challenge is how do you live it every day? How do you communicate it every day? How do your actions illustrate those purposes and those the vision that you have? Because it's easy to fall on deaf ears. You stand in front of it, get up on stage and talk about and pontificate this wonderful vision you have, and then the next week they see you doing something different.
Yeah.
How do you hold yourself accountable?
Yeah, there you go. And that was what I was going to say. So like, it's a kind of like an accountability, of like continuously putting in the reps, so to speak, to re-articulate day in, day out by actions and by words, like what senior leadership are doing and want to get that point across. It's interesting. I think about that a lot because it's kind of like not just within the purview of like hospitality, like you said, like, I mean, it's like great leadership 101 is communicating the values and the mission to the organization and trying to solicit buy-in as best as possible. I find the challenge in hospitality is making sure that happens because some people see it as a first job, some don't see it as a career, others see it as a career. And so you have a mishmash of sort of personal ambitions within the organization in and of itself, like as in where people see that kind of future. And I guess my question to you then is like, because it becomes like question of like identifying the right talent to like move forward in your business. Like, how do you think about identifying the best kind of talent to move into GM, regional director or whatever sort of hierarchy you have? Like, how do you think about that? What do you look for in those people?
Well, obviously, that you hit it on the head. I mean, our business, while it may seem simple, when I started in this business back in, I guess it was the, late 80s, it was simple. We, person walked in, we gave them the food, they gave us the money, And even that was even before credit cards, so it's a simple transaction, right? Well, now with the growth of digital, the you have people ordering on applications. They either, and then they come and pick it up, or you have people ordering on the application for delivery. You have third-party delivery, and you have all this digital growth. It's created a challenge. Running a restaurant is not what it used to be, 25 years ago. So back to your question, what kind of person are you looking for? We've always had a saying here at our company: if I can just find someone who has a desire to listen and grow, and they're willing to show up every day, we can teach them this business and we can make them successful. So when we're interviewing people, we're trying to determine, do they have the willingness to come to work every day, and do they have the desire to learn? And because I have to give credit to a couple of people in my life. I was blessed to have a couple of people tell me, hey, what are you doing? You need to be doing this. And I don't think they may not ever be seen in a mentor book on their tactics. But
the unwritten book, the unwritten rules. So
exactly. But the tactics, they worked. So I always, someone gave me some feedback one time that I like to give the credit to them for providing me information that I can act on.
Yeah.
But the feedback I received is that's great that you had that, but the bigger part was you were willing to listen and make changes and grow.
Yeah.
And so that was the big learning for me. But it's difficult to find good talent that's willing to listen, and take feedback.
Well, that's the thing. And I guess it's like it goes back to creating that culture that comes from the top, which is like being able to articulate that that's part of one of the core missions and values within the organization in and of itself. And then your GMs and your directors really reinforcing that, which hopefully then reinforces it to the actual, like, on the ground staff themselves, like your frontline workers. If we go back to the retention thing, because it kind of all plays into like retention, which is like, your company priority. And let me tell you, you ain't alone with that. I feel like I hear this from every single person, that it's like, we are now in the era of retention. I am always curious about like how to spot and really groom like the great people, because like clearly you've had it, because like you were saying, like this is like how you started yourself. And I find like, you find the lifers, and like how to spot like lifers, and like, what is it that makes somebody in your mind like a great GM of like a Taco Bell or like a Wingstop? Like what makes that person, like you were saying, like you can teach service to people basically, like I said, I can show you the cash register. I can teach you P&L, like we can get you an accounting course, but can I teach you to like open the door, smile, or like pick the trash off the floor or something like that? You know what I mean? Like what makes that person great? Like what do you see, or what's your philosophy behind a great GM, for example?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And it's interesting because I could sit here and tell you the ideal person, but then I would have to ask myself, how do you go out and look for that? I'd have to answer that question by starting with myself. I think that I had a great parents. I always like to make a joke that I had two sets of them because they were divorced and remarried. So I had a great set of 4 people that taught me how to treat people with respect. I think that's something that's an opportunity in the marketplace today, is just, the golden rule of just treating others like you want to be treated. And, the question is, how can you gather that and gain that insight during an interview process as to, how they interact. One thing we like to do is with Zoom and all the other online, media formats for, a lot of interviews now are done via Zoom.
Yeah. And
I tell my guys, that's great for screening, but you need to have them in the restaurant. You need to see, do they walk fast? Do they greet guests without you saying something? Do they go, when you let them go behind the counter and maybe do a little realistic job preview activity, what are they doing? What are they seeing? And you're trying to gain those insights from, I hate to say how they were raised, but, because you can't ask those questions during an interview, but you're trying to figure out, what are their core values on their own? Do their core values match your corporate core values?
Yeah, I love how it is a challenging question to ask because, like I said, everybody has a different flavor of it. Like, you know, and it's a real intangible. I think the French will call it a je ne sais quoi. You know,
Mhm.
like it's in like there's some intangible thing that like it's hard to describe, but you know when you see it. I think I use that phrase almost like in every episode now. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But it's true. I find like this is why I love doing the podcast because I hear from like experts and leaders like yourself articulate something that is very hard to articulate. And, you know, as an organization that prides itself on sort of like the human first and foremost, like as in your
Mhm.
business, you're in the business of humans. I mean, you're in the business of making money, but you're in the business of humans, you know? And it's like at the end of the day, it's like, well, how do you isolate like the kind of core makeups of those people and then look for them? Because obviously, say like if you're like say at your EVP level, and then you've got your what's the rung below you? Is it like regional directors or is it like
Vice
store
president,
vice president,
Mhm.
then directors, then the GM?
directors, and then area coaches. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so like
Mhm.
there's like a kind of like a long gap there, and so you got you. So presumably the person who's below you is also a lifer, so to speak, that they've kind of found that way. So it's like, is that like kind of like almost like the pathway, so to speak? Is that like the people with those sort of intangibles, along with obviously being able to run a business and do the whole thing, but like that X factor is what kind of gets you kind of promoted? Is that what you're kind of? That's what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I would say I would agree with that. I mean, if you can not treat people with respect and be able to, you and I don't want to say a perception.
Yeah,
If you cannot convey a reality that you truly care for their well-being, you probably shouldn't be doing this business.
yeah,
I wake up every day and it's a true pleasure to do my job. I'm not saying it's easy every day. And of course I don't have a job because there's no problems,
yeah,
but I would say that, I wake up every day and I'm excited about going to work. I'm excited about figuring out how to make, my RGM's life better.
yeah,
You've always heard about positioning the RGM as the number one leader in the restaurant because they truly are the most important position in the company.
yeah,
But what I'm trying to do right now is reposition that mindset of how can I make their life better? And that's an open book. And I don't have the answers, Alex. I'm actually doing roundtable discussions with my RGMs. I got
yeah,
to be careful because you go out there and ask them, hey, well, how can I make your life better? Who knows what I'm going to hear, right? But I want to know because I don't know if I know their perspective. I'm
yeah,
54 years old, been in the business for 39 years, and I'm dealing with a guy that's been doing it for 3, and he's
yeah,
not 54. And you have the millennials and the Gen Zs, and I'm not an expert on those, but I do know that I was taught before we knew about Gen Zs and all those things, we knew that we had people are different, and you have to
yeah,
understand how to relate. And so back to how do I make the RGM's life better? How do I elevate the position? How do I improve their lifestyle? How do I grow their prosperity? Those are the types of things that I'm working on. And when I mean improved lifestyle, how do I make sure they're home to go see the kid play soccer that night?
yeah,
How do I make sure that they're able to go on their vacation? How do we make sure that we teach them what they need to be able to, pay for their kid to go to college? How can we help them plan? So I'm just trying to focus on, again, elevating their position, but more importantly, how do I make their life better? So,
yeah. And I mean, it's just, I mean, all of that I love. You know what I mean? Like that's amazing. And it's quite a mission for you to make that happen as well. I think like, you know, it goes back to has this been an enormous attitude shift like post COVID? Not to say that you weren't doing this before, but like recognizing the importance of the person more so now than ever. And I say that in the sense hospitality is unique in that question because every single person in hospitality was frontline back then.
mhm.
You know what I mean? Like in 2020, what was open? You had retail and you had restaurants. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like those were things. And the business and the way the businesses were run
yeah,
changed like overnight.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And like, you know, we're now back to pre-March 2020 employment in hospitality. You know what I
yes.
mean? So like in one sense, the numbers are there that we're back and that people want to work in this space. But has there been an attitudinal shift from leadership, do you think? And not just yourself, but like I would say like anecdotally, that like here you're really emphasizing like the care of the employee and really making sure, like, for example, they can get to that soccer match, you know, like That's like an enormous change, I would imagine. I feel like, and I think most people would kind of say like a shift in perspective of how the industry thinks of itself and thinks of its employees.
Yeah, I would say that there's been a shift since COVID, but I think that as leaders, as we continue to teach ourselves and continue to learn and grow our own leadership styles, I think it's part of it is just I've grown up. I realize that as I've been chasing my own pursuit, you have to be careful that you're not climbing the ladder by stepping on the heads and shoulders of others. I think it's just maybe an evolution in my own mindset that like you said, I've always cared about people, but I think now I'm making it more, as I get older, I'm thinking about what legacy am I going to leave behind, for my people that, you hear about the coaching trees in the NFL with the football coach, that's kind of like, what is my legacy that I leave behind? What is someone going to say, to their, because 30 years from now, there's going to be somebody that works for me today that's talking to a new manager, and what are they going to tell them? Am I going to be the guy they reference? Hey, this guy mentored me, and not that I'm not focusing on that from a ego perspective, but really more about what gift can I leave somebody, so they can help others, because this business is always going to have people, and what are we passing on? How do we pass that torch on to our leaders that are coming on board today?
Well, I think, you've triggered a question to me now, which is kind of a fun question on that, but also like, because you're based outside Dallas, which is are you more inspired by Jimmy Johnson or Tom Landry then, like of the two coaches of your adolescence and growing up, which two do you think you lean more into?
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't ask about the current coach. As
a 49ers fan, I couldn't do it to
you. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think that's a great question. I think they were probably different coaches, at least from an outward perspective. But I grew up with, like I said, I was born in '69, so I was blessed to see the Cowboys back when they performed. I would say the word more consistently than they do today. But yeah, I would say that Tom Landry, I think he was had a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and he was that stoic man on the sideline with the hat.
Yeah.
Or Jimmy Johnson, it was coming out of his mouth. So I would tell you that I'm probably a little balanced in between. I'm a leader that provides direction. I would consider myself to be very direct. I would tell you that I'm probably not as acceptable of excuses. I like to consider myself. I have a maniacal level of accountability.
Yeah.
We all get paid to do a job, and if we have to run labor, we shouldn't be talking about labor. You know what I mean? Let's talk about the bigger parts of the business. Let's not talk about the easy stuff. But that's if we have to talk about the easy stuff, that's my job. We'll do it. So.
Well, that also segues into the last question I always ask people, which, I think is nice and vague, which is, what advice would you give somebody listening to this podcast?
What advice?
I say that as open-ended as possible.
Yeah, I would say never stop learning new things and helping yourself grow. I think a smart leader is a growing leader. And then I would also say, make sure you have a clear understanding of the pulse of your organization. And because if you don't, the HR department may be working on this initiative that won't even have any relevance with the staff that works for you. And I don't speak, Alex, in a perspective of I understand the pulse of my organization. I can tell you I've got my fingers on the pulse right now. I'm listening. I'm trying to understand, trying to elevate my own level of thinking. But I can tell you that I know that my company is going to get better because I'm working on getting better for myself.
Awesome, man. Well, that's actually awesome. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was great. I appreciate it.